All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cascadia Pharmacy Group's webinar, Building Tomorrow's Pharmacy Leaders, a Community-Based Residency Program. I'm Julie Matheson. I'm the Director of Marketing at CPG, and we're thrilled to introduce this unique opportunity to all of you. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to give a brief overview of what we'll cover today. First, we're going to do an overview of CPG. We're going to talk about the history of Cascadia Pharmacy Group, who we are, what we do, and how we do it. Then we're going to briefly touch on some of the rotation opportunities that Cascadia Pharmacy Group offers. Then we're going to talk a little bit about why choose a community-based residency. And then we'll go into kind of the nuts and bolts of the Cascadia Pharmacy Group program, residency program, including all the details on locations, preceptors, how to apply, contact information, timelines, all of that. And then at the end, we'll have about 15 minutes of Q&A, open Q&A. And we've got a few pre-submitted questions that we'll answer. And then also feel free to submit additional questions in the Q&A section on your screen. We'll get to as many as we can. Wanted to do a little introduction on the speakers that we have on our panel tonight. First, we've got Jeff Harrell. Jeff is the CEO of Cascadia Pharmacy Group and its founder. We've also got Tara Fund. She is the Chief Strategy Officer of CPG, as well as the Residency Program Director. And we've also got Crystal Bryant. Crystal is the Chief Clinical Officer of CPG, along with being the Residency Program Coordinator. She is also a former community-based resident. All right, we're going to have Jeff Harrell, the CEO of CPG, kick us off.
Thanks, Julie. Welcome, everybody, this evening. Excited to kind of share the CPG path, our Cascadia Pharmacy Group, I'll refer to as CPG as we go through, and kind of give you some insight into the vision that I had many years ago, and what has gotten us here, and this offering for residencies and interns that we have that is probably second to none, in my opinion, is the quote that they put up for me. Sorry, Julie. This is an unforgettable experience that will hone your career path and your strengths as a clinician. I will tell you right now that as we go through this, you will see that that is absolutely spot on, as a quote that came from me. So who is CPG? Who are we? We get a lot of texts and calls and emails and a little bit of who and what and why and where we are. We are a network of pharmacies, an alliance of independent pharmacies in the Pacific Northwest. We cover Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. Those are the three states currently, but always looking for other opportunities. Many years ago, probably in about 2008, I kind of realized that being an independent pharmacy owner and out on your own island was very difficult. That you needed to be part of a buying group. You needed to be part of other conglomerates to kind of help with admin stuff, with buying stuff, with everything that kind of goes on hand in hand when you get to some scale. And so it all kind of came to fruition over the course, from 2008 until now, from various reasons. But we have a network of pharmacies of 37 now, and with that we have a greater buying power and a greater a whole admin team, and we're able to support the pharmacies in levels that you can't just do kind of out on your own. We share wisdom, resources. I've mentioned buying power, best practices. We've standardized a lot of processes, standardized a lot of our pharmacy management systems, our phone systems. All of those day-to-day things that you're using in your pharmacy, we've standardized and used the scale to help drive down prices and negotiate better contracts and better pricing on those type of things. But most of all, this group is really is to empower pharmacy owners to offer their communities the highest caliber of service. At the end of the day, every single one of our pharmacies is still their independent pharmacy, taking care of that community, those patients, which are our family, our friends, our colleagues. And so, Cascadia Pharmacy Group again, is more of a company that manages all of these stores, but with scale and resources, we've been able to really plug and play a nice network of pharmacies here in the Pacific Northwest. So what are we aiming to do? What really we're aiming to do is empower independent pharmacies to excel through collaboration, innovation, and exceptional patient care. That kind of ties into what I said before. What we're here to do is we're here to keep pharmacies, in our communities, at a time when independent pharmacy or just pharmacy in general struggling to, keep the doors open, keep patient access available, be there, for their communities. We're really trying to I wouldn't say rescue, but help pharmacies along, add them to the group if it makes sense. If not, help them, get in with the students, grow the recognition of independent pharmacy, because really we're actually excelling, much like you read in the news, where it's not so, quote unquote, a bright future in the retail pharmacy side. We're the exact opposite. Cascadia Pharmacy Group, we're knocking it out of the park in many different avenues, and super excited to, collaborate and share. But, like I said, at the end of the day, this is to help independent pharmacists meet their goals, both professionally, personally, financially, introduce patient care that's not really being done in independent pharmacy, or if it is, we're taking it to another level. And like we're saying here, this will transform healthcare, resulting in healthier communities. There are so many opportunities to partner with various entities in your community. Ambulatory care is the sexy word in today's world, AmCare. It bugs me a little bit, because AmCare, we've been doing that since the inception of pharmacy. We do AmCare every day, multiple ways, since independent pharmacy started. But we are expanding on that, through programs that Crystal, Julie, and Tara are working on, giving opportunities, like some primary care, AmCare type stuff opportunities, and super excited again to share it with you. And what we're creating out here is the creme de la creme, is special, and really looking to bring in, like-minded potential partners, but students, potential employees, potential owners. And that's really the goal of what I see is this program.
Well, and if you want to stay on that slide, Julie, just for a second. Today I was talking with one of our students that's on rotation with us about a blog that she's writing, and it's a patient experience that they had this wonderful service from one of our pharmacies where the pharmacist went above and beyond to help meet the needs of their child. And these stories come in all the time from patients, because our pharmacists are allowed to do what they do best. Some of the other back end stuff they don't have to think about or worry about or spend as much time on. And so the patient stories come in all the time about how our pharmacies are providing that ambulatory care, that higher level of service, and changing the health of their communities. But we also have payers and hospitals and clinics reaching out to us about how can we do more all the time. So I think that was perfect to note that our pharmacies especially, but independent in general, we are ambulatory care. We're care in the community at a baseline.
And it's a really unique setup that we have at CPG, because in independent pharmacy, a lot of times it's, as Jeff said, everyone's kind of doing everything in silo, but having us kind of behind the scenes, taking care of all the planning for them behind that curtain. It's really unique if you look kind of across the country at independent pharmacy. So not only do we have really unique scope to allow us to be ambulatory care and clinical in Oregon and Washington and Idaho, but we also have this office infrastructure that's Jeff kind of thought up over the years, and it's been pretty monumental in the inception and growth of CPG.
It's I'm a acronym kind of guy or whatever, but like you said, building the foundation. We have built such a solid foundation that it allows the partners and the pharmacists to really, go into the house that's built and just put all their add-ons and upgrades in the house, if you want to put that analogy to, to what we've done. And the infrastructure is really what makes this successful. like Crystal touched on. The pharmacists get to be pharmacists. The independent pharmacy owner gets to help look and grow their business, gets to work on their business, not in their business, while CPG handles all of the dirty grunt work on the back. There is so much red tape, so much credentialing, so much just paperwork this day and age. I was on a call today with another potential partner in our group, and coming in, and she's just like, at my age, I'm pushing 65, 70, and I'm done with all of this. And so having this infrastructure really opens up the doors and allows you to do what you went to school for and what your passion's for. So you guys are spot on there. So we're going through the history of CPG. I could talk, for 2 hours on this, but I think we have an hour, and the girls have quite a bit to say. Started really in 2006 when I first bought into the first stores on the coast of Washington, and just has kind of evolved through various channels. We had some interns that wanted to buy stores. We've acquired stores. We've merged stores. We've partnered with stores. We've added, multiple stores with single partners. So we have many partners that are partners in more than one store. And it's just evolved into this network. And the growth has just happened organically. It's happened, slowly at first, but as we had the infrastructure built, it's really taken off. I think sometimes the admin team pushes back and says, slow down, Jeff, we're in no hurry here. And I get so excited because when we bring on a store that might be, bobbing in the water, barely, keeping its head above water, and we're able to plug them in and just, streamline and attack and plug into everything that we've built. And then that pharmacy just rises above, and now that's on top of the water, just floating along. That's what drives me and drives the growth and everything, is to take that store and really enhance it. And then let them give back to their community in ways that they've never been able to do. Again, back to the need for scale. The bigger you get, the more you buy. The more you buy, the cheaper you get it. I mean, it's just, basic economics, basic business practices. Also, we have some areas where we're pretty dense in areas of Washington, Oregon. So we, have quite a few lives in certain areas, and by having that critical mass and that patient access, we are able to, garner some better contracts and some pretty neat partnerships with different entities, whether it may be a tribal entity or an FQHC, or a critical access, clinic or hospital, and helping those lives and having those lives allows us to really reach out and do some stuff that's pretty cool. Today, I think we're at 37 locations, and we will be, at 40 locations by January, February, with a growth of potential, 45 or 50 by 2026. So, again, it's, there's not one recipe for this, but it's the infrastructure. I keep going back to that. Tara's hit it spot on. It's that infrastructure base that allows us to kind of go fast and deep with what we do.
And not only buy things cheaper, but gained efficiencies too. The bigger you get, the more you do something. And so you're able to share those learnings and bring in different people with different expertise and really get the best of the way you do every single part of workflow and every single initiative that you take on. That's the other thing I think I've been seeing a lot.
No, totally right. I mean, we do twice a year partner meetings, and we have some of the most brilliant minds in the industry, across this country. If there was a Hunger Games, or if there was some sort of a game show for that, I would enter every one of the partners in, and I know we'd finish, top 10 with every single position. They're just great-minded people, which like talk about collaboration in there. You're not on an island, you're out on a pharmacy working, and you have an incident or something that you've run across you've never seen before. You're 2 phone calls away from getting your answer and your help, from other partners. So it's a family. I stress this. We are a family, and like Tara said, it's great because we can give back to the other partners and help them grow quicker. And so we in that centralizing the business management services. And so, when pharmacists go to school, we're not trained in P&L and balance sheets unless you go and do some separate education on your own. You're not trained in running a pharmacy. You're not trained in all of that. You got to do your payroll at night. You got to send out your AR billings on the weekends. Then you have all your compliance and all your pay and all your IT. And so what we were able to do is centralize all this. We have everything is wrapped into one pretty package with a bow on it, and that's given to all the pharmacies as a support unit for those stores. Again, going back to what I said, it gives that partner, that manager, that pharmacist complete uninhibited working environment to not have to worry about the admin stuff and really let them be that pharmacist, what they went to school for, to shine and grow the business. I mean, there's so many great minds out there that have great ideas. And as you know, if you don't have the time, you can't get the idea. This gives them the time to get those ideas, and then we bring them together, we collaborate, and we roll them out. And then, our commitment to excellence, access to innovative ideas, residencies, and student mentorship programs. What Julie, Crystal, and Tara have done, and the student mentorship programs and the residencies you're going to hear about here coming up are second to none. If you get an opportunity to be part of them, you won't be sorry. It is a premium product, and you will get a premium experience.
Good. One thing I was going to add to that too is that one thing that I've noticed, I've been with the group for about 3 years now, is that we have, like Jeff and everybody was saying, we have a lot of brilliant minds in this group, but they don't have necessarily the time or potentially the know-how on how to execute some of these programs. So they will bring these ideas to us. And, Tara, Crystal, and I, and other people in the group just get together and brainstorm, and we are the ones who execute it. So, and it's really fun to see that vision kind of come to life. That part's been really fun for all of us. So,
and there's also all the other partners, right? So if somebody has an idea on expanding their vaccine program, well, Tyler on Vashon Island is already doing a really extensive project on that. Or you have each owner has something really special to offer, and we can run these pilots and work out any kinks before we expand it to everybody. So using that expertise within our group is another big strength.
And that centralized connecting point too, because we kind of know what each person's doing. And so we can be like, oh, you know what, this owner that you maybe don't talk to that much, they're doing something very similar. Let me connect the two of you. Mm-hmm. So I'll talk just a little bit about our student rotations next. As Jeff mentioned, one of the things we did, and with this office infrastructure, Crystal and I, this is not even a whole year old, and it's been really neat to watch the growth and the transformation happen. And one of the things we did is a lot of our stores took students for various internships or externships, IPPs and APPs. But what we did is we really helped standardize and streamline those rotational experiences, as well as create the residency programs. So on the next slide, we'll talk about kind of the different rotations. These are set up with every school in Washington, Oregon, Idaho. We've got Creighton, Montana, some basically your West Coast pharmacy schools. And we have definitely done some ad hoc setups with other schools across the country as well. But what we did is we kind of streamlined the ability to have a variety of rotations based on your interests and geographical preference, as well as the ability to do some type of a block setup if you preferred. So if there are any students out there who aren't quite looking at the residency route, but thinking about rotations, it's a really good way to get exposed to CPG. I know Crystal is really passionate about IPPy rotations. I've been so long in like more of the advanced things, but she's, it's such a neat way to really build that longitudinal relationship with the pharmacy team, with independent pharmacy and different owners within our group. So we do offer the IPPy rotations, essentially all of our 37 locations. And then we also have some stores that are offering a batch of core rotations. So essentially everybody's got those community practice APPy for your last year of school. But we also have a clinical ambulatory care that we are offering in select sites that are set up to robustly medically bill. We've got them credentialed and in network using software to document and code. We've got revenue cycle management services. We've got coding expertise and clinical program implementation support. So all the things you need to really be ambulatory in community in a really, really robust way. So we do have that ability to offer that rotation. And then you can always tack on some elective rotations, or you can opt for just one. One is in compounding. We've got some really robust compounding sites, as well as management and ownership. So really learning the ownership of a business. And as Jeff was saying, it's not something you really learn in school. And so I think that's a really unique rotation opportunity for anybody thinking about heading into pharmacy ownership. And then lastly, there's a remote rotation available with Crystal and I and Julie and kind of the whole office team working on different business admin opportunities. So we've got certain geographical spots where you could do 3 to 4 rotations in that area, especially tacking on that remote location.
I know.
And
Oh, go ahead,
Oh, go
Crystal.
ahead.
Sorry.
Okay, I'll go first. I was going to say that a rotation is the best interview for a residency if that's something that you're thinking about down the road. If you're a P1 to P3, sign up for a rotation, get to know some of the sites, get to know us, and then when the team knows you and loves you, it just makes it a really easy entrance into a residency.
Mm-hmm.
And I know like the fourth one down here is ambulatory care, but I am getting hit up left and right now to do more and more ambulatory clinical services, primary care. Primary care is dying in a lot of rural communities and just in general. They're leaving either their own practice because of Medicare requirements, restrictions, paperwork, or they're just leaving the facilities they're working with because of various reasons. And so I really see us, and I know by in the next 6 months we're going to have 1 or 2 almost primary care sites set up where the pharmacist is going to be seeing the patient and doing a scope of practice that we've just talked about for years. We're actually going to be doing it. And so, that is super exciting because I know a lot of people in college are looking for that ambulatory experience, and they think it has to be done in a hospital or in a clinic setting. But no, I mean, your independent pharmacy is where it's at. And then I just want to touch on the management ownership part. If you have any inclination of wanting to be an owner or be in management or leadership, you have access to the top of the line in this group. I cannot stress that enough, that you will get exposed to every intricate part of ownership and management in these rotations.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we're going to jump now to talking about residencies and some of the benefits. Why is this something that you might want to consider? And I did a community-based residency in 2012, and it was one of the best decisions that I could have made for myself personally, but also for my career. And so let's start with personal and professional growth. So a residency, when you're in pharmacy school and even in rotations, you see so many different learning rotations, different sites, different preceptors, and you're learning under them, right? And then you get your license and it's real life and it's kind of scary. There's a lot to still learn. There's a lot you still don't know. And a lot of my colleagues that just went straight into pharmacy, they struggle to find their own path. A lot of times, if they ended up in community pharmacy, they would maybe bounce around. We hear a lot about how satisfaction in the workplace is at an all-time low, but it's different in independent pharmacy and it's different in a residency because when you're a resident, you get to jump in there. You have people still pouring into you. You have, Jeff, Tara, Julie, myself. You have an awesome set of residency preceptors at each site. Our owners are all fantastic. And then under them, they all have these wonderful teams that truly do feel more like family, and they're pouring into your learning. So when you're there staffing, you're going to be learning not just your everyday staffing, but how do you staff as a clinical pharmacist and workflow? How do you elevate the level of the whole team while you're there? How do you deal with different problems that come up, whether that's insurance or patient complaints or somebody coming in with shingles? You're there to deal with all of it, but you have a whole group of people behind you to support you. So it's your license on the line. It feels like real life. You're not a student anymore, but you have that support and the people that are there, not just to help you excel as a pharmacist, but to excel as a person. And you get a different level of of care and concern. And it doesn't stop at Cascadia Pharmacy Group either, because the universities, we have Julie and Jenny, and they care about you. They care about how do you teach? How do you present yourself? How is your mental well-being? And so you're going to grow a lot, and you're going to truly get 3 to 5 years worth of experience in a single residency year. So I just encourage you to think about, how are you going to invest in yourself? Sure, it costs, you're not going to make as much as a resident as if you go straight into pharmacy, but it has been worth every penny and more for me. And Tara is a past resident as well, and I think she'd say the same.
Yeah, the
So
other thing I always say here too is about teaching self-evaluation and really stopping and thinking and reflecting on, you know, what you did well and what you want to improve on, and what are your goals and how are they changing as time goes on. It's something that a lot of times when you just go straight into the workforce, you work, and we in accredited programs especially, they really emphasize teaching that to residents. So that's something that I know Crystal and I do with our students, and definitely would do with our residents as well.
Yeah, for sure. We actually have pharmacists coming to us from the chains willing to give back their sign-on bonus and to even potentially take lesser dollars for a better work environment and a better experience. You know, I have this story, and Crystal sat with me at lunch when we were interviewing a gal who had worked at a chain for over 10 years, and she was ready to leave, and she did not want to. She was just miserable. She was literally like beat to death. I mean, she had PTSD from, you know, from the corporate mentality and all the structure behind that. And we talked her through it and talked her into it, gave her a weekend. She came on board. She couldn't be happier. She actually, you know, revitalized her passion for pharmacy. And it's just amazing to see that growth in our arena, you know, versus, you know, outside arena where, like, you know, Crystal mentioned, you know, you could go chase that money, and your job satisfaction is going to be absolutely miserable, and you're going to feel stuck. So it's real world. It's a warm and fuzzy opportunity.
And besides the warm and fuzzy of being supported in a different way, you also will have time to pour into what your passions are. And so if you're clocking in and clocking out and you can't work off the clock, you know, that's your life as a pharmacist. But when you're a resident or when you're an owner, there's a different level of ownership in your learning, in the success of the pharmacy. And you have that time to say, okay, well, what do I want to do with my research? What do I want to do with my business plan? How am I going to implement something else? And you get time to brainstorm and work on making your pharmacy better and making your community better. And so that's pretty cool as well. The next slide talks about building your network. And we touched on it already with, you have this whole group of support people that are pouring into you, but it goes beyond that. You know, Jeff has a national presence. He's the NCPA president right now. He's going to international meetings. We have like 8 owners on different committees with NCPA. People are involved in their CPESN networks and on their state associations. And so your network is going to be wonderful at Cascadia Pharmacy Group, but it doesn't stop there. Doing a community-based residency will build a support system and a network that goes much greater than that. And what we learn here in the Pacific Northwest is different than what people will get in North Carolina, but we can still collaborate and say, well, what's going on in your state? How is this working? How can we do something similar here? And so it's really important to build that network. And network sounds so stuffy and calculated, and I used to hate that word, but it's so important, and the mentors that you have will be important throughout the rest of your career. When I Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna make it a little more warm and fuzzy. We build relationships that last a lifetime, and those relationships are things that you'll lean on. That's your network, but there's really the relationships, you know, both locally and nationally, and those relationships are what will help you grow and expand. You professionally.
Yeah. And your mentors, and it truly is a relationship. They're going to help give you advice throughout the rest of your career, or even push you to do things you don't think you want to do. Tara's one example for me. She was my residency preceptor, and we've worked together for over a decade now. And there's been a few career moves that I've made along the way. And oftentimes I would say, I don't know if I'm qualified. And Tara would say, just do it anyway. And so the support of her personally, but also other mentors that I got my residency year have really allowed me to take on new challenges and work through different struggles and different jobs along the way. And the importance of that mentorship and support is so huge, not just next year as a resident, but throughout the rest of your lifetime.
Another unique thing about our program too is our residency program and our student rotation opportunities and working as a pharmacist or owner is that we've got so many people. So for residency, independent community pharmacy, a lot of times there is only one resident. And so we've got 6 across 2 states, 2 universities that you're collaborating with. Granted, one site's one university and the other one's the other, but you've already got this huge cross network of 6 sites, 6 teams, 6 residents, 2 colleges. So just at baseline, you're going to have a larger spread to find those connections and be lined up with the people who are passionate about the same things as you.
Yeah. So the next slide talks about career pathways. And sometimes people wonder, well, why do I want to do a community-based residency instead of Jeff's favorite word, the ambulatory care residency, or something that may sound more sexy. But a community-based residency will set you up for success no matter where you want to take your career. And so if you want to go into academia, there's community pharmacists that have gone into academia and are doing really amazing things with universities. You can become an owner. That's more unique to an independent community residency versus a large chain. But being with our group, you have experts to work with, and you have the support system that is already planning to expand. So if that's something that's on your career roadmap, ownership could be an opportunity. There's tons of ambulatory care opportunities. You can get board certified. You could go into leadership. I mean, the world is your oyster. And so you could really do anything you want from here, but you have a whole year to learn, to think differently, to be challenged on your ideas, to overcome, and then truly just make that landing pad to launch the rest of your career.
And do trial and error. That's one of the things I always say there too. During a residency year, you really have the safety net to try something new and innovative, and not often really in your career again will you have that opportunity.
Yeah. And that goes along with this slide too, about new, innovative. What is your passion? What would you like to accomplish? And you get a whole year to open your mind, grow, and create your own opportunities. So there's community residency programs. I talked to one in Utah because ours is brand new, but they have residents that graduate every year and they retain almost all of them because as their business plan, they build their own job that they want. And so it's really great that you can take this non-accredited residency, morph it into exactly what you need, what aligns with your passions, pair on the right mentors, and find your passion to really just do whatever you want to do in your community-based mission. And so I think that whatever you want to do in your future, residency can be a really great opportunity to at least explore. So now I think Tara's going to talk a little bit about some of the specifics of our residency program and how to apply.
Oh, perfect. So yes, some key things that are different about our community-based residency is we've got longitudinal rotations. So when you start to look in the residency programs, a lot of times they specialize in various blocks of patient care, whether it's like infectious disease, cardiology, and you do it for like 4 to 6 weeks. Our rotation is really set up to be longitudinal, where you spend an entire year doing kind of every Monday, every Tuesday, every Wednesday, maybe not so fixed, but the same experiences all year long. And that's a really neat way to be able to learn various business operations, clinical operations, and really see the impact of what you have thought up, so all the things Crystal talked about, you don't get to just have an idea and kind of go on to your next site, but you actually get to take that idea and continue to move it forward. So I think that's very, very impactful.
Well, and they build on each other. What you learn in one rotation or one learning experience will make you better in the next learning experience. And so not only do you get to follow that longitudinally, they get to build on one another as you become a more well-rounded professional yourself.
Yeah. And a lot of times people say, well, what is a community residency? And as Crystal said, I did a residency. I did it in 2009. And I was actually the first community resident in Southwest Washington and all of Oregon. And I remember going to this group called Citywide in Oregon for all the residents in the Southwest Washington, Oregon area. And everyone was just like, well, what are you doing? Why are you doing a community residency? That's just a waste of money and time. And I was like, there are so many opportunities. That was when I first started to see how care and clinical services happen in community pharmacy. This community approach versus there's a lot of clinical aspects to an institutional residency, but a lot of times there is a lot of aspects where you aren't actually interfacing with that patient, and especially not on a long-term basis. And so that was what I was really passionate about, and that was why that type of a residency felt good for me. And I think it's really grown since then. Looking 15 years later, it's definitely much more commonplace now. Still not as well recognized, but I think people generally know more about the idea of a community residency. Also, we really designed our program non-accredited to create that ability to have that flexible training based on the locals, the needs in your community, as well as your career goals. Crystal and I both were with accredited residency programs. I was RPD for a lot of years, and we see a lot of that value, and we plan to bring a lot of that structure to our program, but we also want to maintain that flexibility that each site, each resident, each year of what's needed, and that you never know when COVID is going to happen again, right? So being able to have that flexibility is very important.
I like to call that nimble, which is
Nimble.
community pharmacy. We are nimble, we are mobile, we are agile, and like Tara said, our industry is constantly evolving and changing, and that's what makes us and sets us apart from everybody else, is our ability to pivot on a dime and go down, like if COVID hit, or pivot on a dime and take over an HIV program or a Hep C program that's needed in a community, or whatever that may be. That's what sets us apart, and that's what makes us be able to do things and turn on a dime, pivot.
And I mean, Jeff does get these calls. I mean, we're getting texts Sunday about a new ambulatory care opportunity in one of our stores. And so there are people absolutely that are reaching out to him and our group for new opportunities. Okay, so on the next slide, we're going to talk about and I think we've really hit on this point a lot, but our residency is designed differently with the idea that the basic office infrastructure able to interface with that team that works on one side of the curtain or wall, and then also be a pharmacist seeing patients and owning a business or really managing a clinical operation on the other side. And so it's a really unique setup for independent pharmacy, and it's a really unique setup for community pharmacy and ambulatory care. And so being able to have that team of experts and preceptors and each other, we plan to have the CPG residents have a SIG where you guys come together once a month and really know each other virtually and have opportunity to meet each other in person as well at conferences and various owner meetings, as Jeff mentioned, we have. So I think that's definitely a big differentiator. As well as I know Crystal mentioned how we work with Jenny Bacci for University of Washington as our preceptor for academia, and Julie Akers with Washington State University for those residency sites. Those are both very involved pharmacists. If you've been to any Washington conference, you absolutely know who they are, I'm sure. Both on the WSPA board, both do a lot with residency programs. I've actually worked with both of them on residency programs over the past years. And they both do come with that teaching certificate opportunity through their respective colleges, and the opportunity to create that teaching portfolio, provide a lecture, be able to have other optional opportunities of leading us continuing education or a certificate or a workshop or things that might be of interest for you, as well as like journal clubs and those types of things. And I think, as Jeff mentioned, payer programs, it's definitely happening in our pharmacies. We have these pockets in certain geographical regions of a lot of lives. And so we're able to we have clinics, we have organizations like companies asking us, can your pharmacy help call patients, reach out to patients? And we also have payers saying, I've identified these patients for these quality measures. Can you help us reach our goals? I mean, it's incredible. We even have asks about providing MTM services for the whole state. So it's really neat to see how when you come together as this premium cut, as Jeff likes to say, of independent pharmacies, how you have these opportunities put in front of you, but B, you also have that support behind the scenes, again, of all those pieces needed to make it work. So you can just work on seeing patients and getting that patient care volume up. Because I think that's one of those pain points in community pharmacy practice sometimes is we launch a program and there aren't a ton of patients yet. And so that's what's been really neat. And we definitely see our residents directly being engaged in that. We also have got a lot of really wonderful SMEs and Pioneer and ways to optimize workflow, use different technology. We have documentation EHR for medical billing. Different schedulers are being used across our locations. So we've got a lot of aspects layered in with technology and a lot of great success stories and ongoing projects too. And so this is just kind of a breakdown of what the residency program schedule looks like. We've got different rotational opportunities, and we do have a lot of information up on our website too as well, which we'll have a link to that later. But we've got our independent and clinical community rotations that are in the store, really seeing patients, helping be kind of the traditional staff pharmacist hat, but also really driving patient care services, providing them and elevating the entire team to be a part of those patient care services, including the technicians and supporting staff. We do have the kind of traditional residency research project with quality improvement and a business plan. So we'll kind of follow that traditional structure, as well as time carved out to really understand ownership and or clinical ambulatory care management. So we've really kind of tried to split that into two pathways. We see some people kind of become saying, I really don't necessarily want to own, but I want to really do advanced patient care services in a community pharmacy and really be in charge of that. So that's one pathway. And then the other one is tied to ownership. And then we've got academia and then leadership. Like Jeff mentioned, we're a team of leaders for our nation. And so we have dedicated time and travel stipends, et cetera, for conferences, et cetera. And so these are our residency sites. We've got 3 partnered with Washington State University and 3 with University of Washington, 2 which you'll know are in Oregon. We do have 2 of them, Centralia and Goldendale, that are tied to the Rural Health Initiative as well. And so now I'll just talk briefly about each one of the residency sites. Definitely happy to answer specific questions. And as part of the interview and candidate selection process, you'll have time to really understand more about each site, and you always can reach out in advance if you want it as well. But for our Centralia location, this is one of the ones that's participating with the WSU Rural Health Initiative. And this store really highlights a lot of pioneer and workflow optimization opportunities, as well as really having the entire team practicing at the top of their license, from the students to the clerks to the technicians to the pharmacists to the owners. Everybody is really kind of pushed to their full potential, which is how they're really able to execute on some really amazing clinical services and business opportunities. And they have unique community collaborations as well with us. So Boxone Clinic and other local health departments. And there is 2 sites here. So the primary site will be Centralia, but there's another pharmacy location called Chehalis, and you'll be able to kind of work with both teams, have both those patient populations available to you for initiatives that you're launching. And they do actually have housing available as well. And so I know that could be something that people want to take into consideration when thinking about a residency. So that's just a little bit about that site. The next site is Goldendale Pharmacy. This is actually truly like rural. It's also part of the RHI grant, but there's one place you can be seen for patient care services at a local clinic or hospital. And other than that, you have to cross a bridge, go into Oregon, and to be seen for care. And it's about a 45-minute to an hour drive one way. And so it's a real barrier. And so that has meant a lot of payers have reached out about initiatives. I've had a payer ask, can you prescribe over-the-counter medications to my Medicaid patients so they don't go to urgent care and ER for Tylenol for their kids? And she's completely set up robustly to do medical billing and network with all the Washington payers. She's been doing it for several years now. So absolutely a leader, not only in medical billing, like her knowledge is very, very extensive, but she also has really unique, advanced pioneer and workflow optimization experience too. She comes from chain background. And so with that experience, it's just how her brain thinks. She just can take an idea or a clinical service or any type of a workflow and say, okay, this is how I'm going to make it really happen in workflow. And so great person to learn for that. And she also does have housing available too. The next preceptor we've got on the slide is the next site is Eric's store, and he's also got one of his pharmacists, Sophie, who will be the primary preceptor in kind of collaboration with him. So for 6th Avenue, this one's really set up differently in that it's tied and partnered with a couple other pharmacy sites that offer long-term care services, hospice, and really, really robust compounding. So you kind of get your traditional community plus a whole lot more. And he, being in Spokane, is very engaged with the Washington State University College of Pharmacy and has a lot of opportunities with the health district and community partners. And then we've got Grants Pass. And so this is one of the ones down in Southern Oregon. As Crystal, I think it was mentioned that Jeff was NCPA president. Michelle was a couple years ago. And she also has been doing medical billing for a long time. She's got really unique alternative payment models. She gets paid far above the traditional fee-for-service schedule for medical billing claims. She is able to be supported to do an important service of medication delivery and packaging and be able to be reimbursed as a medical claim for those services. And huge advocacy efforts too. She's very passionate about changing pharmacy care. So that's a really unique site and a great pharmacy leader to work alongside.
And Tara, at this site, if you get bored with pharmacy, it has a full line soda fountain, old turn of the century. So you can scoop ice cream and make milkshakes too.
Yes.
Diverse experiences.
Huge front in there too. And then last is Tyler. He's one of our newest owners, kind of joining, not the very newest, but close to. And he is out in Myrtle Drugs. He also has a location real close in Roseburg as well. And he is a prime example of that Southern Oregon concentrated lives like Jeff was talking about. We've got just opportunities galore. Every time I turn around, we've got large clinics, large self-insured employer groups, and payers saying, how can we work with you to change pharmacy practice? He also has a really unique background at a federally qualified health center. So he brings in a lot of, and he worked with pioneers. So he brings in a lot of pioneer expertise and just a different clinician perspective than your traditional born and raised in community pharmacy. And so he looks at things differently and thinks about protocols and clinical initiatives differently. And he's super, super passionate about teaching. So he's got some really robust medication synchronization methods, and he also is all set up as a VFC site as well as for medical billing. Several of these stores were with Crystal and I actually in our past job. And so it's really fun to be able to carry forward the work that we started with them going forward. And then last but not least is in Seattle proper. We've got well, not quite for this one, but we've got Matt, who's got 3 stores that are with award-winning preceptors, just a stellar team that are really changing pharmacy practice every single day, super passionate about it. He also has got long-term care services as well as compounding programs available. And being right there in Seattle, he does a lot with the collaborations with the University of Washington as well. And so he is somebody who's super passionate. Anybody who knows Matt knows he's absolutely, I think the thing I always say you learn with Matt the most is like team and building that network and that personal professional growth. Like he just, every single day, it's just amazing the way he looks at things. And so it's really neat to watch how he attacks business and thinks about business, but really the people behind it. And they come to work every day with that why, just super driven for sure. So with that, I'll go to the details. So it's again all on the website as well for additional information. But we've got, if you go online, on the website, there's a kind of towards the bottom, there's apply online. You kind of fill it all out, and then there's a spot to upload your resume, your unofficial transcripts, or you can email them to me, a letter of intent, and then answer kind of the supplemental questions. And then on the next page, it'll ask for the information for the 2 preceptors you want to write your letters of recommendation, and then they'll get sent kind of a link prompting them to complete that and send that back. And so that's kind of the overarching application process. We are going to do it around kind of with the decisions being made prior to the forecast being the match being required. So because of that, we are having an earlier deadline of December 30th. And then we anticipate virtual and in-person interviews happening throughout January.
One thing I want to touch on, Tara, could you go back one slide, Julie? Ostrom's and Matt, there's an opportunity there for some, A4M, nutraceutical, if you're into that, naturopathic, avenue as well. We have a couple stores that do a lot of that wellness providing, and so I just wanted to touch on that because that is a big space, that the supplement space, the nutraceutical, the A4M space, and so there is some opportunity there for some learning and education as well.
And so lastly, we've got on the page just some different resources where you can go for additional information. When he first said, okay, we'll do a residency program, actually, Matt was the one who said, can you do a residency program? I know you've done them before. Next thing we knew, we had 6 because Jeff does everything big, right? But when he had that idea, we had written this blog of kind of just reintroducing that concept in the independent world of the community-based residency programs. And then we also have an extensive website linked up there, kind of talking you through the program, linking you to a PDF that's like 8 pages with details on the services and the sites, as well as the application process. And then we just linked a couple of just miscellaneous resources. One's just on Jeff and kind of his international impact, and just really painting that story of the type of people you get to be exposed with and work alongside. I mean, Jeff's absolutely inspirational and really neat to work with. And I think it's really fun way to kind of read more about him. Julie wrote that blog. And then Crystal and I actually presented at NCPA recently on clinical services. And there was a neat little article written of that presentation. And so we threw that up too, just to kind of give some examples of the things that some of our leadership are doing. And so with that, on the page is again the link to the website, also my contact information, my email and my phone number, as well as our LinkedIn page. It's another thing we just kind of started earlier this spring, and it's really been exciting to watch that grow and be able to be an avenue to spread the word about the great things we're doing at Cascadia Pharmacy Group. So it's a good way to kind of just learn more about our group and the people that are part of or what make us us. So definitely include a link to that.
Okay. We would love to answer some questions. I do have a few that that were pre-submitted, and so I'm going to go ahead and start with that. I'm going to go back to Tara's contact information while we're doing that. So I have a few questions I'm going to start with, and if you do have a question, the chat is closed on this webinar, but you can actually go ahead and drop a question in the Q&A box at the top of your screen. That is open and working. So if you have a question, please drop it in there. Otherwise, I'm just going to start with a few questions for these last few minutes before we wrap up. The first question I have, I'm going to direct to Jeff. Jeff, how will this residency prepare residents, students, or pharmacists to become strong leaders?
I mean, we've covered the majority of that question in our programming, but to reiterate, the exposure to the caliber of people, the caliber of leaders, the caliber of business operators, and the caliber of programs that we're doing are game changing. They're industry leading, and that exposure alone is going to put so many tools into your work belt that will help you throughout your career for years and years and years. I just can't reiterate that enough. I mean, it's like going to the pizza parlor and getting every topping on your pizza that they have to offer in the entire menu. Again, back to my analogies, food and alcohol. So
I know pizza, I think new though. I haven't heard that one yet.
Yeah, well, I know, but it's just, it really is a rich experience. And there's not just one thing, Julie, it's many, but it's really the people behind it. I know Tara had some great comments to say about me, but I'm only as good as the people you surround yourself with, and the team at CPG from top to bottom, is the cream of the crop.
Good. Okay, Crystal, I'm gonna ask a question of you. For the people here who might be interested in applying and going through the interview process, what qualities does CPG look for in a successful candidate?
Qualities of a successful candidate. We're really looking for passion. I mean, all of our pharmacy owners, all of our people really care, and they're here, they're committed to their communities. They want to make people's lives better. And so we would expect that that's going to just exude from any applicant. But we're also looking for those self-starters, the people that want to be the creators and dreamers and implementers. Tara was the first resident at her residency site. And so with that, she could probably talk to a lot of the things that come with building something, right? We have a foundation, we have a residency manual, and we have some structure to what our residency is going to look like. And we also have the flexibility to make it uniquely yours and give you exactly what you want to get out of a residency. But you're still, as the first resident, you're still going to be building a lot. You're going to be building what that looks like with your team, what that looks like with providers in your area, with payers. And so it's going to take somebody that's a self-starter that wants to see something done differently and wants to see it through. And then I always think attitude's important. You want to learn, and you're going to get whatever you're going to get out of this residency, whatever you put into it. And so I think those are some key things that we would look for in a resident. One of my old mentors always said, we want them to be smart and we want them to be nice. We can teach them everything else. And so if we were to boil it down to what we're looking for, we need that good fit, somebody who's going to just make it something amazing. Tara, did you have anything to add, or Jeff?
No, I think those are very, or good.
Yeah. No, I was just to say, I think you're spot on. It's make it a good fit. It's got to be something that all these things you have to interest you. And you're doing it because you're passionate about it, not because you feel like it'd be good on your resume or something. You got to be passionate about it. I think we touched earlier on our expansion. I do when we add a new partner to the group, I do an extensive vetting process, because we are a family. If you want to look a little bit more, I did a pioneer podcast called The Pharmacy Matchmaker. You can, Google that and find it and listen to that podcast. But, we've been able to put together, I think we have somewhere between about 21 partners. And we all get along, like we're, family. And so that's really important to this whole process for us. So, you want to be committed and passionate about it. And like, Crystal said, you're going to get out way more than you put into it, but you got to put into it.
Yeah, and I always say, I think that we really have the goal and the vision of being where you create your own job, kind of like what Crystal talked about in Utah. Like, you're there for that year doing something that creates an additional revenue stream, that expands programs. Maybe you're finding a pharmacy to buy with Jeff and join CPG. Maybe you're getting yourself trained up to really take over as a clinician, running clinical services out of 3 neighboring sites. There's huge opportunities for you on the other side. And so headed into it with that year of saying, what am I going to do on the other side? Hopefully with us, but of course we always support people going on to other places, but we really have the vision and idea of that, you being a permanent part of our family as well, on the other side of that year. So using that year to gain those experiences is huge for us, I think.
Okay,
Someone who
I think
either
I
wants
have
to own
time.
pharmacy, or yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think we have time for one more quick question. I'm going to ask Jeff. In what ways do you expect the residents to contribute to the growth and innovation of CPG during and after the program?
I think today's student, when this kind of is reiterated with our new current partner, Joe Tillis, is you guys are exposed to way more than what we were exposed in school, whether it's conventions, whether it's programming, whether it's organizations like NCPH or APHA or whatever. You're exposed to way more than what we were exposed to when we were going through school. And so technology, social media, all of those avenues are things that, yeah, we do do well, but I think there's always room for improvement. And I think your young minds and your young your exposure to so many more just things in pharmacy will definitely help contribute to what we're doing and help and enhance our programming. And I always believe in lifelong learning. If you're not growing, you're dying. If you're not on the edge of your comfort zone, you're not growing. And so I think that the students will bring a ton of energy, a ton of new ideas, and the exposure that you've had compared to what we had in school is tenfold. So I think easily they'll contribute to and enhance what we're doing.
Love that. Great. Okay. Well, we're at the end of our hour with you. And so thank you again to everybody for joining us today. I'd like to thank Jeff, Tara, and Crystal for sharing their expertise and providing you with everything you need to know about our residency program. Remember that applications are due December 30th, and you can find all details on our website. We look forward to seeing many of you apply and embark on this journey with us. Look for a follow-up email with the webinar recording and a feedback survey. And we'd really appreciate any suggestions that you might have to help us with planning future events like this. Thanks again. Have a great day.
Good night, and thanks everybody.
Thank you.